Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Faith Family Fulfillment. I am your co-host, Chris.
I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Avery.
Avery. We are going to unpack a family event and talk about the effects of those events, why we do them, what we've learned from them, and all the good, the bad, and the ugly. Does that work? Mm-hmm. And you got on your 29 and 29 gear. And if anybody's watching this, they see that pretty red hat. They know what that means. And so I'll pray us in and we'll get started. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to sit, to unpack something that we did collectively as a family, that all the while we were talking about the beauty of your creation and how you show up in our life all the time. Like it was a constant reminder of just you. Please guide this conversation and let the message that needs to be heard be heard. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So, 29029. This was my fourth attempt, third in person, Mom's second attempt in person, and your second attempt in person. Mm-hmm. Tell people what 29029 is.
When I get asked that question, I always say it's a hiking endurance event where you climb the equivalent of Everest in 36 hours. Just because I feel like that's the simplest way to explain it.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Or an ultramarathon all uphill, I think is how they were describing it while we were there.
Yeah, because this one was, mileage-wise, the longest one they do.
Mm-hmm. 31.2.
31.2. So ultra-marathon distance. We did it in Whistler, Canada. We had, your mom and I had planned to do that in 2022. Yeah, 2022, because it was my 50th year. And COVID vaccine mandates
kept us here.
Not doing that. And last year we were in Snow Basin, Utah together. And we unpacked that last year. I want to unpack this year. You know, the difference is last year nobody came away with a red hat. This year we were 33% successful with getting a red hat. And we're super proud of you for doing that. So describe Whistler to those that are listening. Like, it's Whistler, Canada. So.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we got a different Whistler than what was described to us. It rained.
We got a very wet Whistler.
Yeah, it rained almost 95% of the time we were hiking. But it's beautiful. Like, I was sending you reels constantly of Whistler after we went to Snow Basin last year, just because it's gorgeous. The sunrises, the sunsets, just the view from the mountaintop.
Yeah. So in Snow Basin, you're literally on a rocky desert. It is. I mean, it's Snow Basin, so it's a ski lift. It's a ski resort, but it's only a ski resort in the wintertime. The other time, it's just a rocky mountain. Whereas Whistler is in British Columbia, Canada.
Forest.
It's forest, and there's
very
stairs,
pretty.
and it is.
It's open to the public as well. Like, it's not a closed-off trail that 2929 had to create.
Right. Yeah, they like at any given point you can go hike it, and it's called Little Burn, Big Burn, and Heartburn are the names of the trails combined to do it. But you spend probably 85% or more of the time in the woods.
You're under canopy.
Yeah, under canopy of trees that are just old cypress trees, I guess is what they probably are. There's some type of a spruce or cypress tree. Thick, heavy roots, and gnarly bark, but beautiful. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous. And like all 29 and 29, you start at 6 in the morning on a Friday morning, and they give you until 6 o'clock at night on Saturday to complete the challenge, which is gaining the elevation, vertical feet of Everest. This challenge was 3.9 miles of walking or climbing, hiking,
Each ascent.
and with over 3,900 feet of elevation gain. The difference is between, at Snow Basin, we I don't even think we got to the height at the top of Whistler that we started at in Snow Basin. So you're at a much lower elevation. the whole time, which was our hope in that. The reason we chose Whistler, a big part of the reason we chose Whistler was, number one, the beauty, and number two, with Suzanne's difficulty with elevation last year. Because we thought, well, if we start at a lower elevation, maybe that'll change. How'd that work out?
Went twice as far.
Yes, you did, right?
I will claim that small victory.
Right. Which I was super excited to see, because you went as far and as high this year as I did last year.
Yes.
Same, it's the equivalent.
12 miles, roughly 12,000 feet.
Yeah. So big win there. Because I think people don't understand, like, it's...
But you say 12 miles, and they're like, 12 miles?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, 12 miles. All uphill,
In
the
the rain.
and it was cold.
Yes. So,
and dark.
And
some
dark,
of it.
yes.
Because it did rain for 20 hours straight. It was a lot of rain. More rain than they have ever had there. So it was very, very wet. Lots of difficulty. So you and I, at the top of the first ascent, I looked at you and I said, "Oh, we're going to crush this." I was so excited.
Yep.
I was so excited because, that I mean, it was easy. I just felt like it was doable.
Yep.
Because of the structure of the trail. Inside the first, and I said this last year, inside the first half mile of Snow Basin, you are asking yourself, what in the heck have I signed up for? And in this one, you still had some of that thought, but it wasn't like a kick in the face. And the challenge was different. So I want to hear both of your thoughts about first ascent. Like, what did first ascent feel like to you?
You can go first.
First ascent wasn't horrible because it wasn't raining yet. I think that was the biggest thing. And I think the first ascent, you're just learning a trail. So it's really hard to have an opinion because you're really focused on, like you said, there were lots of tree roots and different things. Like, we didn't have that last year in Snow Basin. We had lots of dirt and rocks, and like it was dusty and gross. But you weren't afraid of getting your toe hung or your hiking poles stuck. Or the rocks with the chain as you're pulling yourself up, and it is completely a rock face. We didn't have any of that. So first ascent, it was kind of just figuring out like where to put your feet. But it wasn't awful because, again, it wasn't raining yet, mild temperatures, and it was very pretty. It was easy to get distracted with how pretty it was and kind of forget, like, you need to pay attention to where you're going.
I think before you give, go ahead and give yours. I'll give mine.
You can go.
No, go ahead.
Basically the same thing she said. It was more of making a mind map for the next one up, just because the first one's always slower, and it's just figuring out where you're going to put your feet and how to do better the next time.
Yeah. When I look back at the first ascent, I think the reason that the speed was what it was is because it was so easy just to stop and go, wow. How many times do I stop and just look back and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I took my camera out and took pictures the first one up.
So it's, and not that that's a waste of time. It is about the experience. Yes, you want to finish. Like, everybody wants the red hat, but I think you don't want to overlook the experience itself and what can be gained, and making those hard memories. So we get done with the first ascent. We come down. We start second ascent pretty quick. Like, we didn't waste a lot of time between ascents. Second ascent for you, because that's the one where she left us. Was at the bottom of second ascent as we were arguing about breath. Describe your second ascent.
It was better when you weren't there.
I believe it. So what could I have done better?
Exactly what you did.
Just leave you.
Yes. I said, I don't need you to wait on me. I'm good. I know where I'm going. There are 3 aid stations between where I am and where I'm going. There are people. I'm good. Let me just be.
Gotcha. Because I could see her frustration. She's like, oh my God, this is happening again. And it's only the second ascent.
I feel like I handled it pretty well. I just walked away.
You just walked away. Yeah, you did. And we had said going into this one, like, we want to do it together, but we don't want to cause each other not to.
Well, there's doing it together, and then there's doing it together.
Yeah.
We were there together. That doesn't mean that we had to be with each other the entire time.
So to give you the picture of what that looks like, inside the first half mile, I'm doing everything I can to encourage my wife. And you heard how that went. And our daughter, who's known us for 23 years at this point, goes, yeah, just forget this. Y'all deal with each other. I'm gone. And I think first aid station's where we separated.
That was before that.
It was well before that.
First,
we didn't even get into the woods.
No, I'm saying you separated from us way before.
Yeah.
I mean, you were.
It was like right after we started.
200 yards.
Yeah.
It had started to rain at that point.
Yeah.
So it was already getting a little disgusting.
But I felt like it was right at race station 1 where you and I separated.
It was before that.
But we did separate, and I felt like you hadn't gotten that far ahead of me, because I did separate from your mom so quick, and so I was doing my best to double time it, and I ran into Coach Brent right at aid station 3, and he said, "You're not that far behind Avery. You'll catch her at the bottom." That's what he told me. Mm-hmm. And which gave me a lot of incentive to, okay, let's try to double time it again. And it had started to rain, which adds so much to it. You know, I've told people the one thing you can't train is the weather you're going to face. And I don't think people that have it, if they've never done any type of endurance event, they don't understand it's all about energy management, fuel management. And when you put on something to try to stay dry, you increase the amount of fuel you burn, and it just causes havoc. At least that's what I saw. But I did catch you at the bottom of 3. And we did 3 together pretty handily, because we were trying to make time to get to dinner. That was a huge disappointment, the food. Yeah. So I'll say this. The event itself, 29, they do an incredible job of creating community and most of the time feeding us. This particular time, that was not the case by the time we got there. I think if we had been there early, then we would have had more selection. Yeah. But at that point, I desperately needed real food, and you desperately needed real food. But we were on pace. At the top of 3, we were on pace. And I remember talking to you in the gondola on the way down that we were going to go change clothes, because we were soaked. And we had a timeline to get back out there, and we had a timeline that we needed to be done with 4 to be on pace. And we were also talking about your mom, about
wonder where she's going to be.
And my everything in me said that when we got back to the room, that's where she'd be.
I think we checked Life 360 and we were like, holy crap, she's back on the mountain.
That is exactly the response. Yeah. Like, oh my, like I was so dad burn proud of that. Because that's a hard decision to make, is to get back out there in the dark, in the pouring rain at 9:00 at night to start a hike by yourself, because you were by yourself completely, right? And just the determination that I saw in that was in stark contrast to the conversations we were having when we separated.
So I was better when you weren't there.
So proof that it's better without me. But yeah, so we got there, changed clothes quickly, grabbed some food to fuel us up, and started ascent 4, which if we said if it's going to be a 3-hour ascent, we're in good shape. And then what happened?
We didn't get it for 3 hours.
It was a lot harder to hike at night in the rain.
100%.
It was so much harder because when you're hiking in the daylight, even in the rain, you can still look ahead of you. But when you're hiking at night, in the rain, you have to look straight down at your feet. And that position alone is ridiculously tedious and fatiguing.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the course roped off, like with markers, other than like the little tiny lights on the post, probably 15 feet apart.
It was raining and it was foggy, and it was really hard to see.
And it's not like it's a straight line there. You have to like weave through the woods to get to the next marker. So it was a lot harder to orient yourself. Like I even talked to somebody who got lost for 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of that going on. And while we're walking on Ascent 4, I'm realizing like I just can't go. Like it was a fuel issue. Like I was exhausted is not even the right word. Empty is the right word. I've thought and thought and thought, and it wasn't that I was like I wouldn't use the word tired. I just had no gas, and that was a weird thing for me. Like I didn't. And so when we stopped at aid station 2, both of us had to take restroom breaks at aid station 2, which in the wet, in a outhouse, in a like
Porta John.
Man, that's it's
a chore.
It is a chore. It's aggravating. Makes you want to kick the
Because it's also dark.
Potty. It's dark. You can't see.
You have to wear your headlamp in the bathroom.
Headlamp. I hung it up so I could see. But I knew when I'm like, this is not going to be good. And if I stick to this idea that we need to cross the finish line together, then Avery's not going to cross. I knew that because we needed it to be in less than 3, and we were pacing like 4 hours and 15 minutes. So we're pacing way behind. And I was like, I'm going to have to let her go. And I did not. That's the same thing that happened last year. I had like different circumstances. But I was like, I'm going to have to let her go. Otherwise, this dream that I have is going to interfere with the dream that she has of finishing. And I came out and sat down, and we had that conversation. Tell me about that.
I kind of knew it was coming just based off of how that ascent had gone. And I knew if you didn't make the decision, I was going to have to. So I was kind of preparing myself. I was like, I don't want to. Like, I could get eaten by a grizzly bear out here. Like, I'm going to be walking by myself. Because at that point, it was past midnight. And so I knew going into it, everyone else had reached 5 and was taking a break and going to sleep for a couple hours. And I knew I was going to be like one of 12 on the mountain at that point, going up for my next ascent by myself. So I was a little scared.
Right. So it was a hard conversation for me to even start to have. Because I didn't want to leave you by yourself. I didn't want you to be disappointed. I didn't want you to be afraid. All the things you don't want your children to experience as a parent, you're literally saying to them and giving them that emotion. Like you're giving them the circumstances of having to go through that emotion, fear, aloneness, like it's disappointment. All this, like I was delivering a message that I knew that's what was going to come from it. So a really difficult conversation for me to have. But I've taken it away as a life lesson, not the conversation, but the idea of I can't let my dream get in the way of the dreams of those around me. Like being able to turn loose of whatever it is that I think is the best for what they see as best. As long as it's, we had a conversation on the last podcast about, like being able to dream, like not holding back someone else's dream, but encouraging it. So we get to the top of, in fact, I'm going to go back to 3 for just a minute because I think it's a great story. It was so cold and rainy, they were giving out blankets at the top of the gondola. And they were out of blankets for us. And I had begun to shiver, like uncontrollably shiver. Like my whole body was in shiver. And I knew that if I was at the bottom of the mountain and they saw that in me, that they would not let me on the mountain. Like I knew it. And I was panicking. I'm like, they're going to take me off of this. I'm not even going to be able to do 4. Like I was like, I just didn't want to be pulled. I wanted to be able to make the decision for myself. And I'm in my puffer jacket. I'm in my hat. I'm like doing everything I can not to shiver. And I literally said, Lord, just please make it stop. Please make it stop. Please make it. I'm praying out loud, right?
Yeah.
You heard me. And we got to, so halfway down the mountain, there's a stop and there's a break. And at that break, there were other people there. And they said, do y'all want blankets?
They're fresh out the dryer.
And they were fresh out of the dryer. They were hot blankets. So and you're halfway down, so you've only got about a 10-minute ride left. But that 10-minute ride, I wrapped up in that warm blanket, and my shivers went away. I'm like, thank you, Lord. Like you gave me just what I needed. Right before this ascent that I had to like call it not quits, but take a break. So tell me about ascent 5, 6, 7, and 8 from your point of view, or 5, 6, and 7 from your point of view. because I want to give you our point of view of what we were
Okay.
going through.
Gotcha. Well, I had to change clothes every single time. So I went back, grabbed my AirPods because I knew I was going to call Thomas. I texted him on the way down when we had the conversation we were going to split. I texted him. I was like, I'm going to have to call you. I'm going to be by myself. I just need you right now. And so I called him as soon as I started walking up the mountain after branding the board. And so from that point on, we had been on the phone the whole time that I was hiking. And he was kind of pacing me along, just making conversation because it's still dark. I'm still by myself and it's still raining. So there's just a lot going on that I was trying to stay focused, but I didn't want to be by myself. Because I think at that point there were 6 people in front of me. I passed 3 of them. And so I was like, cool. Like, I'm out here literally by myself. But yeah, I just one after the other, one foot in front of the other. Like that was all I was focused on, just getting one done after the next.
Gotcha. So the great thing, I'm glad you brought up Thomas, because the great thing about that is he was having conversation with you and being able to text us about what you would need, what you were looking for, so that we became a pit crew, to some degree. But when you came off of 5 and Brent, Coach Brent was down there, and he, I had gotten there, he was there. He and I had a conversation about what was going on in my body, and he had said, dude, you've got to eat. You just need real food. So go find breakfast. Go get real breakfast. Because I had kind of told him that I really wanted to do your last ascent with you. And because I felt like you had the juice to go through. And he's like, where is she? I said, well, she's coming down the gondola now. I'm here to meet her. And you branded the board, and you walked over, and he said, what's your plan? And you gave him your plan. And he's like, he was gonna give you more time. He was gonna give you more buffer space. He goes, that's a great plan. And from that point on, he was literally watching you every ascent, with trying to pair you up with people, like getting you with people that were on the same pace as you or on the same ascent as you. So shout out to Brent Weiss, because he is absolutely amazing. And I told him that before we did it as a family again, that I was just going to hire him as our personal coach, just like for all of us, So give me your thoughts. I mean, you were in the room with us, with me, when she was going through ascent 5, 6, and 7.
So when I came off after my 3rd ascent, again, soaking wet, freezing cold, my main focus at that point was get warm, because everything on my body was wet and it was windy. It got windy at the top. And you're on a 20-minute gondola ride down, and you're cold because they're somewhat open. So goal 1 was to get warm. But I was also coughing. I don't know if y'all remember or not. I remember it because it lasted for a month. But I was coughing a lot, which makes breathing really challenging when you're trying to breathe that wet, damp, nasty air. I was coughing a lot. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just see. Because I thought when I came in from that 3rd one, I was like, if I get dry and if it slows down, the rain slows down, I wouldn't have been opposed to going up again. That didn't happen. So, but it was kind of at that point, it was just okay, like what can be done, because it's a 4-mile up. So once you start, you're committing yourself to 4 miles, period. So you got to make sure that that's what you want before you start. So it was making sure that those 4 miles and whatever was needed was ready. We probably should paint a picture of what our hotel room looked like at this point. Gosh. It looked like a frat party gone wrong.
It was.
Because there was stuff.
There's food, clothes.
Yeah.
So
everything.
One of the things that we did different this year was we had trained very specifically with certain types of food because of my gut issues in the past. And we knew that if we had used the same foods that we had trained on to fuel with, there'd be less likelihood of a gut problem. Didn't hold true, so we learned something else. But
we weren't able to have food on the hike with us, except for what we could put in our pack. So you're trying to play the game of how much weight do I want to carry versus how much do I think I can sustain without it. So there was a lot of things going into figuring all that out because we couldn't carry like whole food. I mean, our stuff was mostly whole food based, but it was still like a snacky kind of food.
Yeah. Specifically for endurance stuff. Most of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I said Thomas was such a blessing. Like he kept us super informed because I wasn't about to really sleep. Like, I mean, even though I knew I had about a 3-hour break, like it was really difficult to even just try to sleep with you up there. And when you came down for 7, off of 6, going up on 7, because that's when they start making your bib.
The red bib.
Right. I actually got a great video. Tell them to make my bib. And I said to you then, you said, are you going to make 8? Mm-hmm. And I said, depends on my gut. Right now it looks like I am, but I'll let you know for sure. And everything it did begin to straighten out after the whole food. I mean, I ordered a huge breakfast. I mean, like 3 or 4 waffles. And I mean, it was a big breakfast. And very quickly my gut got an order. I mean, inside of like an hour and a half, like it started to feel somewhat normal again. So when we went up for your last ascent, walk me through your vision of that.
I mean, I was just going on a walk with my dad. I mean, like, it wasn't my last ascent. That's not what it felt like, because at that point I knew I had enough buffer time that we could take our time, enjoy it. Like, we weren't rushing through it, so we actually got to enjoy the last ascent. Whereas other people are like trying to sprint up the mountain on their last ascent, which I really think they should enjoy it more, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The rain has slowed down a little bit too.
Yeah, the rain had almost stopped.
Yeah.
And that ascent, what I tried to be conscious of is I knew I was fueled. Mm-hmm. Like, I had not been on the mountain in several, like 10, so we started at 2. So it had been almost 12 hours since I had been under any type of duress, physical duress. And so I knew that I had more in the tank. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to outpace where you were in that moment. But yeah, it was just a fun walk. You know, we got to talk about a lot, you know, talk about the wins, talk about the hardships. And, you know, like I said, in my head, my dream was that we would cross and we'd get the red hats together. But being able to be behind you as you cross the finish line and walk the red carpet and they donned you with that red cap, you know, the elusive red cap. And your mom was there, like we were all there, you know. And the neat thing is, it's like Colleen, you know, she's the voice of the mountain. And when she knows you. At this point, she knows all 3 of us. And she actually said, you know, here comes Avery Vester, and then Dad's right behind her, and I'm sure Dr. Suze is up here somewhere. Like, I mean, so they know you well. Can you even remember walking the red carpet? Like, what that felt like? Because, I mean, you divert. Right? To the right is where I had to go, the peasant path, you know, and then you got to go on the red carpet as a finisher.
Lots of people say congratulations. There's a couple people that I had walked with one of my ascents that had already finished, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad she made it." So just a lot of camaraderie is what I remember, just being welcomed. But I didn't want to be up there forever, so I grabbed my hat and walked away because I don't want to be the center of attention.
That's exactly what I told your mom. I was like, she can't even be the center of attention long enough for me to get a good picture. I just want to get a good picture. So what was it like for you? I was behind her, watching her walk the red carpet. You're on the other end watching her walk up the red carpet.
There was just this sense of just like, oh my God, relief. Like, now I'm done. I've accomplished. Now I can put my feet up, rest, take a shower, eat, like whatever. Yeah, it was just kind of like there was a finality to it at that point.
Right. So that's what you saw on her face. What were you feeling?
I was very excited for her. Very excited. Because I had not been out there the full 36 hours, but I was out there for over 12, and I was wet and miserable. And, I mean, I know what that felt like.
And as people listen to this, they hear miserable. Right, they hear cold, they hear wet, they hear hard, they hear like alone, they hear all the things.
But before you finish that thought, I want to interject one thing. If you can get good at doing all those things, life is going to be a lot easier.
Right, and that's exactly, you know, we talk about this being the family misogi, like the family thing we do that's hard that we do together, because we'll learn about each other, we'll learn how to encourage. Like, I know what to do. Next time we do this, I'm just leaving your mom at the gate. Like, I'm just like from the gate, hey, I'll see you at the end.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah, so
just for the record.
Because I think what that means is, like, she'll get more done because I'm in the way. But, you know, we just learn a lot about one another. Like you said, you knew on the scent for, like, I'm going to have to separate. And I don't know what that feels like as a child to say to your dad, dude, you're holding me back. I got to go. I do. Like I said, I know what it feels like as the dad going, I've got to let her go. So I think there's a lot to be learned about one another, doing it hard things as a family unit. But I say we decided. I think I decided and kind of pushed everybody towards it. So what does it mean for you? I mean, we haven't done the episode about your engagement. We're going to do that episode. You got engaged this summer. What is going through this as a young adult? What things and rituals does it put in your mind to do, even at an early stage of life, with your spouse, with the eventual kids? Like, have you thought about that at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thomas and I have had many conversations about it. But the more you can endure together, I mean, you have to start by yourself. Like, you have to endure alone. But the more you can endure with your circle and your family, the closer y'all will be, but also, like, life doesn't seem as sucky. Like, it doesn't. You're like, oh, I just walked in the rain for 36 hours. Like, nothing. Eventually, like, all the other bad crap in your life is like, man, it's really not that bad. Like, at least I'm not walking in the rain for 36 hours. Like, it just gives something else to compare it to. Because I feel like there's a lot that life can throw at you, but we've talked about doing hard things every single year. Like, it's not going to be 29 next year because that's just a lot. But, like, running a marathon in a national park, just something different every single year, and eventually bringing our kids into that, hopefully, is something we've talked about.
So you've already started having those conversations, which I felt like that would be the case. But I, for those that are listening, this is, again, the second time we've unpacked this event. We won't be unpacking this particular event again until probably 2025 as a participant.
That's next year.
2026, excuse me, 2026. But Avery and I have had conversations about, hey, how do we go volunteer? And I've been thinking about that a lot since you said that, because, you know, when I hear Colleen say to me, I think you should try this one because your body's built for that one. Like, maybe that's the one we need to volunteer for, so I can at least walk it once and see just how bad that sucks. Yeah, but doing the hard things, I think, even though only one of us finished, I think all of us grew closer. We've got memories that will last forever. We got to see some amazing parts of Canada, and, you know, just travel together. It was great. It was great. I look forward to doing it with everybody over the course of time. What are your final takeaways?
I'm going to do it by myself next time. And I don't mean that in like a pejorative way. I mean, I'd love for y'all to go and volunteer, but I think I did not hate being out there by myself.
So you want to do it by yourself next year and let us volunteer for that?
Yeah, we'll be your pit crew.
Yeah, maybe we can get into one, like, you know, if it's just one of us.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But I did not hate being by myself.
I think there's a lot to be, you know, the only thing that I can think of that kind of feels the same as when I spent that time on the Appalachian Trail. You know, you're spending so much time having internal conversation, you know, and you get to learn a lot about yourself. And I think the advantage is everybody's there is facing the same battle. You're facing the same hard. So, like, when I heard when Thomas would say, "Hey, this is what she needs," like, I knew exactly where she was at. Like, you know, like, she wants this, and like, okay, well, based on what she's needing, I know where her headspace is. Even just in the need list, it gave me a lot of insight, because you're out there, so you know, because you get to the point where you don't want to eat. Like, you're very peculiar about what you want to put in your mouth. Like, I think I've had one peanut butter and jelly sandwich since we've been home.
I haven't touched it.
Yeah, we have a whole box of mountain snacks.
Yeah, so because a lot of the stuff that we had was peanut butter and jelly based, you know, the flavors and all that, and you just go like, ugh, not again. So, cool. Any final thoughts from you, young one? So would you encourage parents to encourage their children? Or would you encourage children to encourage their parents to go out and do something like this?
Yes. Because I think, especially over this past year, we've seen a bunch of parents walking with their kids and vice versa, where one has encouraged the other. And I think just listening to those stories is really cool and inspiring, but walking it out is also really cool and inspiring. So,
Because there were a lot of
Families.
father-daughters, families, a lot of that, which the first time I did it in person, the first time I did it in 2020 virtually, like nobody in my group was with anybody that they even knew, not a spouse, nobody. They were all individuals, myself included. Like I did it alone. And then in 2021, where we did it, and I was there with a group of men, nobody was there with their spouse or that I met, or their children or any, like it was no family. And then all of a sudden you start seeing it pop up that families are doing it together. I mean, even Jesse said it last year. Jesse is up on the mountain. He goes, "Man, it's so cool you're here with your family." So anyway, well, thank you for being our guest. I know this isn't your thing. You just said I don't like being the center of attention, and we literally have you in the center of both of us. So thank you so much. Can you pray us out?
sure thing. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for the privilege it was to hike the mountain and to do hard things together as a family. I thank you for the gift that was. I pray that those lessons last a lifetime, God, and that we're able to share those with others and encourage others. I thank you for this podcast, and I pray that the message that is received by the people is what they needed. In your name, amen.
Amen.